What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. I'm also a certified empowerment coach, and as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. But it's Wednesday night. It's a little bit past 9:30. It's actually 10 o'clock Eastern Time. We had some technical challenges today, but we're going to give... You know what? Let me introduce the ladies first. First things first, most Wednesday nights, we have this outstanding lady from Rockford, Illinois on the line. Her name is Jazz Keys. What is up, Jazz?
Hey, glad to be back on Stuff another week. The technical difficulties was my fault, guys. I'm going to stand in front of that before we even get the show going. I did it tonight, but nonetheless, we're here to still have a powerful discussion. So excited to be here on Stuff. And then we just get to have her back 2 weeks in a row. So great thing. That's a favor for us. So technically I did us a favor tonight, Dr. Vibe.
Yes, I agree. And Jazz and I, we host this conversation called Stuff, where we talk about current events and culture from a black ladies and black men's POV, which means point of view. We had some technical difficulties tonight. So we're really blessed because we have our special guest on tonight for a little snippet. And then, God willing, we're going to have her back in 2 weeks' time, and we're going to do a little bit longer version. So we have my dear associate friend, Dr. Chetachi, on the line. And my God, what doesn't she do when it comes to media? But I will say the thing that she really rocks the house with is her wonderful conversations called Media Scope on every Wednesday at 5 p.m. on Busker and 6 p.m. on Facebook Live and Periscope. So I won't even read her bio because she's been on the Dr. Vibe Show long enough, more enough, so you can go read it there. I'm just going to say, what is up, Dr. Chetachi? How we doing?
Sir, I'm fine. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. And we'll be honest, we were thinking about not doing this because of technical difficulties, and we got into such a rich conversation. I said, let's just turn on the record button. Come on, like just make it happen. So, Tachi, want to get your thoughts, because you're media guru, about the lack of diversity behind the camera when it comes to television programming.
So this is interesting because I actually am going to be on a panel speaking about this in about 2 weeks. They're doing the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, and I'm actually going to be on a panel with the founder of the Miami Fashion Film Festival, and also with Jo Marie Payton, who played the mother on Family Matters, and also played Sugar Mama on The Proud Family, and has done a bunch of different things. Also got her played, I can't remember the character's name, but on Perfect Strangers, that was a spinoff, and then Family Matters was a spinoff of that. So we're actually talking about lack of diversity, and then the roles for women of color and that type of thing. So it's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, the answer is yes. There is a lack of diversity, not only in front of the camera, but of what we call above the line. And not just when we talk about film, we're talking about media in general. We're talking about Naomi Campbell just recently, a couple of days ago, kind of blasted Vogue for the lack of diversity there. So when you're talking about, these major magazines, how many people of color, how many women of color are you seeing in these major roles, these administrative and these top roles at magazines, at papers, at tech companies, which are now all, media companies. So you look at places like Facebook, etc. Are there very many of us who's now getting into production? They're producing original shows. Are there very many of us in key roles behind the quote-unquote camera? No, there are not. Everybody's talking the game of trying to change that. But I mean, I think there are a lot of different things we have to look at before we say, oh, let's just change it, because it's not as simple as it sounds.
Right.
So let me ask, and Jazz, jump in wherever you can, and I want to shout out Cod Diamond is in the house, so welcome, Claude, one of our, both Tachi and Mai's, one of our best supporters for what we do online, and he says, you guys are great, so thank you much, Claude. But Tachi, it seems that what the representation with online media is no different than what has existed for many years in traditional media. Agree or disagree?
Tell the truth and shame the devil. You took that to church. And this is the ironic thing, that we live in a time now where this is the best opportunity we have to create media without a middle person, without being told, no, you can't do this,
Yes.
without being told there's no funding for this. Get yourself a phone, some kind of camera, and go live or record and throw it up on YouTube or Vimeo. That opportunity exists. The problem is, the people that are being paid attention to, that are getting the shine, that are garnering the attention, are the same old people and the same old players when you think about it. The paradigm is the same. So though we've created these platforms that are supposed to shift the paradigm, the shifted paradigm has now turned back to the original paradigm. If you look at, and I really love a lot of the shows that are on the Facebook original content, when you go to the watch button. But when you look at some of the people that they have shows, I'm like, but this person had a show on terrestrial television. How are you changing anything by just now giving them a show on a digital platform? So that really robs creators, content creators, of opportunities when you do that, number one. And number two, it's the same old people. You're going back to the same 10 people in Hollywood getting deals or getting seen all the time. How is that changing the paradigm? So I 100% agree with you, Dr. Vibe.
I feel like your response just kind of naturally shifted into my question, and maybe you addressed it already through that response. But I'd like to kind of expound upon that a little bit. As we're talking about the lack of representation that we have behind the camera, behind the screen, behind the content that people are receiving on a consistent basis. That's how we're consuming information at this point. What issues does that cause as us being receivers of the message, that we don't have any control, or that we're not utilizing these platforms to our fullest extent? What does that do as far as those who are, conscious enough to understand that the messenger shapes the message and then we receive what they give us, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, it does. And you are 100% right. The messenger does shape the message. And if it's coming from a particular faction, they're going to shape the message, and that affects how the message is received. It's funny because I just answered a student back. I'm teaching, what am I teaching? It's a media and society class. And I just put this in my answer to her on the discussion board, that the way the message is, the person who shapes the message affects the way the message is received. So you're 100% right on that. I think that there's a bigger issue here, and that's why when we were talking before, it's not as simple as, well, we just need to get more people of color in key positions or more people of color on screen. It's not as simple, because when you look at it, goes back, number one, also to training and where these individuals are getting trained to do this. So forget about new media for a minute. Let's talk about the old paradigm or old media. Traditionally, the way you got into that was, well, unless you knew somebody, but you went to school for journalism and you went through the ranks to do that. You may have gone to school for theater, and eventually that may have morphed into a television career or whatever. And, that's not everybody's path, but that is a path that that happened. If you don't have access to those critical connections, you did not go to Tisch at NYU. You did not go to USC. You were missing from Syracuse. I think it's Walter Cronkite? No, Walter Cronkite is Arizona. I don't remember. But there's so many schools now. If you didn't have the opportunity to be at a center where there were, number one, a knowledge, but number two, networks, and let's be real, we always say, oh, well, it doesn't matter where you go to school. Yes, the hell it does. I'm sorry. As a professor, I'm telling you, it does matter. That doesn't mean that you cannot get a good education anywhere. Absolutely. But if you're talking about connections, you're not going to make the same connections at Wakaloo State College that you would at NYU. Nope. I'm just saying. You can hate me forever for that, but, you'll thank me when you realize I'm right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Go ahead.
No, well, Cod Diamond makes some interesting comments here, and I want to know if you agree with them or not. He is saying talent, content, humor will always win out, and he also says technology is the game changer.
And I agree. I really do. I agree with it to an extent, because you know I love you, Claude. It's a game changer. It's a game changer overall. It shifts the paradigm overall. But when you look at certain communities, it does not. Because what's been happening is when you look at, okay, take up the live streaming community example. There have been, everybody was all excited about it. And then what happened? The first Periscope conference happened, which I went to in New York City, which has now morphed into Summit Live, right? So what has happened, even though that was a community-based thing, you had your Periscope stars or whatever, and those were the people that were selected to go and speak on behalf of everybody that was a live streamer. Very few people of color, very few different types of ideas, but very few people of color. So it was a game changer for those people who were selected by the powers that be, but for the rest of the people who were working equally as hard, who were equally as visible, who may have even had better content, it was not a game changer for them. So again, when you think with the same paradigm, or you think with the same tunnel vision, you're going to pick those people that are within your realm of influence, or the people that look like you, or the people that think like you, and you forget about everybody else. Usually, what happens is it's contingent upon those of us, the people of color, the people that are left on the outskirts, to point out, hey, you're not including us. We're always the ones who have to say, can you include me? It's never the other way around with it. Well, maybe we should include. Rarely is it that way around. So
I
have a
tangent. But.
Go ahead, Jazz.
No, so I have a question, because I always like to I always like to have the dialogue that lets people who are listening to the show or come back and listen to have a certain level of power within self. So I always like to figure out through conversations how we can put power back into our own hands, or how we can take control of whatever the topic may be. So in this particular conversation, when we're talking about messages, and we're talking about lack of representation, we're talking about, the good old boys still controlling things that present as being open and community based. What can we do, in your opinion, whether that be someone like myself, whether that be someone who maybe isn't even as formed as us? What can we do as receivers? And I mean, learning how to question messages, learning how to research on those kind of things. And then what can we do to begin passing messages using what we have access to, and creating our own community? Because like you said, if we're not getting invited, if we're not getting asked, we're still being excluded. So what can we do? What's within our control, I guess, is my question. Great
question. Number one, stop waiting to be asked and sit down at the table. I never wait to be asked. I just go and weasel my way in there. And if I wasn't supposed to be there, oh, well, sorry. Go first, apologize later. So that's one. Exactly, right? I think part of the biggest thing, don't ask for permission. You can apologize later if you weren't supposed to be there, but I'm not apologizing either. I think the biggest thing is that that's one thing we do. We're constantly looking to be asked, or constantly looking for permission. And I say that as people of color, we're looking for validation for something by being asked to be there. Well, okay, fine. You didn't ask me. I don't care. I'm going anyway. So they're closing the door. Kick it in with your Doc Martens or whatever shoes you happen to be wearing. That's number one. Number two, these platforms are out here for us. We don't have to wait for other people to validate our work by waiting for we need the Emmy and then it's valid, or we need the Oscar or then it's valid, or in the case of live streaming or, digital, we need the streaming and then it's valid. Ugh. You may never get, if you're only doing it for accolades and recognition, you're in the wrong business. You are in the wrong business. So you need to do it because you have a love of the information, you have a passion for the information, and you want to see other people get it. Believe me, other people will notice when you are doing things, and it shouldn't be for noticing, but it is nice to be noticed. I get it. So start putting something out there. I keep using Issa Rae as a thing.
My gosh, she's so bad.
She is everything. No, please. It's a conversation. It's an epic conversation. So took her Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, put it on YouTube. She was not waiting for anybody to, I think they raised some money on Kickstarter. They was not waiting for anybody's permission to put that out there. She got picked up by Pharrell Williams' I Am Other network on YouTube. HBO saw that, and before that, she had a hosting gig on a show on TV One. Right. So, or Centric, one of the, TV One or Centric. So then HBO saw this, negotiations began, look where she is now. So that's not to say that that is your path should only be about, oh, I've got to get to HBO or I've got to get on Netflix. That's great and that's a fine path. But I think these platforms can be a big within themselves that put the things out there and people will come. And then on the receivers and those of us that are watching these products, or, you know, tell other people about the shows. Yes. Make sure you're watching. Make sure you support. Because one of the biggest things that causes us to fail is by lack of support. And when I say support, I don't just mean by people who look like you. It's not just people of color. It's like, right. If you look at not Awkward Black Girl, but Insecure, everybody watches Insecure. Not just black people. So it's right. About pulling your tribes in to support and making sure, if at least not that, you support these. So those are the three biggest things.
I think.
Go ahead, Jess.
No, I was just going to comment, just saying that I think wrapping all of that up, one of the most powerful things I think that we can do as a community as a whole, and I think each one of your points point to that, is we have to stop being passive about our own lives, our own narratives, our own stories, our own talents. And I think all of your points allude to that. Like, it's no more of that sitting back and waiting for things to come to us. And I like that. I'm sorry, Dr. Bob.
No, it's okay. And Tachi, you just responded to what Cod Diamond was saying, but I want you to expand on it. Cod Diamond was asking, can't we fire the good old boys with technology?
Well, it's really difficult to, and I'm not using this as an excuse, but it's really difficult to win a race that that these factions had several years start run, and they're like basically almost done, and we're playing catch up. So when I talk about that race, I'm talking about funding and money and those types of things, the capital. That's really what makes a lot of this run. And often we lack capital to be able to do things on those major levels. That's a real impediment for us.
No, okay, Tachi, and I'm gonna bring up this point. Is it that there are people out there that can make this happen? So do you think it's a capital thing, or is it a lack of wanting to work together for whatever reason kind of thing, or both?
Well, I think it's a combination of both of those things, and plus a lot of other factors.
Right.
I think that sometimes we have a misconception of, let's just look at black people. Let's look at black people in Hollywood. So every time something happens, people are like, well, what about Blair Underwood? What about all these famous people? Can't they get together and buy a network? It's not that simple.
Right.
First of all, black actors and actresses make much less than their white counterparts.
Yes.
And even when you are pretend you're making bank, pretend you just made $1 million on a project, okay? Which, is not a lot. And when you look at black women in Hollywood, when they're being cast for roles, they're not making six figures most of the time. They're making, 7 figures. They're probably making 6 figures, if that. So it depends on what the role is. And so when we're looking at these things, on top of that, they live in Hollywood. They're recognizable. So they can't just live anywhere. They have to live someplace where there's a level of security. They have to, there are all these things that they have to pay for connected with their work and their celebrity. So for people to just come out, unless you're very wealthy, like you're a multimillionaire, for the average person in Black Hollywood, that's probably not something as easy. Not that they can't get together and do something. It just may not be on a scale as large as some others, if that makes any sense. So I think that's the thing. I think we have a misconception of how much money, for example, black people in Hollywood actually have. And number two, when people are doing these things, they're not often spending their own money. Let's be real. They're not coming out of their pockets with the 50 million and things. That's not them. They have other people that are vested, that are, investing in these things. And that's not always something that we have available to us. It can be available to us, but it takes a little bit more time. So I think we have to stop fooling ourselves into thinking everybody has the same level of wealth when you are in entertainment, because that's not the case.
So I have a question about kind of that whole grandiose, moving into the Hollywood space and the concept of money and what it actually takes to, number one, like access that kind of platform and then sustain it, and then like what we're up against, as you mentioned. Is it maybe more beneficial, even not tactful, but strategic to attack this at a grassroots place, like not necessarily having to be box office? Not that that's not a powerful move as well, but kind of attacking some of these YouTubes and some of these smaller networks and the Twitter feeds and the live streaming and the intimate conversations and growing the voice that way, in that more organic grassroots way. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does make sense, and I think that is 100% valid. I think that is something we can definitely do. One thing that sometimes hinders us is the thought that of money, and it's not just people of color. This is everybody who thinks they could be a YouTube star, thinks that tomorrow they're going to end up making X, Y, Z. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, it's a slow build to build an audience. Just what you see represented in the people that have made it on YouTube is a nanosecond of all the people who have worked to do things on YouTube and have not made it at that point yet. It's a slow build. Number two, it's also not necessarily going to pay your bills and be very profitable initially. It takes a lot of blood and sweat and tears and work and believing in what you're doing and passion, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get rich right away or off of it at all.
Right.
So I think the grassroots thing definitely works if you have your priorities straight in terms of this is for the information, this is for what possibly can happen, this is for building a foundation for us to actually have good media products out there. I may not be able to get rich off of it. However, this is one thing people can do in terms of monetization. You may not get rich off of your YouTube stream. Probably you will not. But the opportunities that come from being visible on YouTube, you can make money off of. And that's what people need to understand. It's not the media product itself often that makes you money. It's the other opportunities, the lecturing, the traveling, the books, the classes, those types of things.
I've got a question for Jazz, believe it or not, on this topic. You just came a few weeks ago from NABJ. Was there any conversations around this sort of topic at the NABJ conference?
So I think that for me, and this conversation absolutely made me reflect on NABJ. I think that what I appreciate, and I'm going to try to answer the question through this response, was a group of individuals who are passionate about the voice, and less about the accolades or necessarily the need to feel like I am, successful because I have this education or this. But we are at a time in history, we are at a time in our society where Black journalists, Black writers, Black media individuals are recognizing that now more than ever, it's a time for us to own our story, and we want badly for our side to be conveyed and communicated, and not to be pacified, and not to be dismissed, and not to be, pushed over. And so when you see a dynamic group of people who are all working to serve as a way to introduce the Black voice, and doing so in a powerful way, it is very inspiring. And so I think that those conversations, of course, naturally came up. But I also believe that we are at a time where we're beginning to recognize that we do get to control our narrative at this point. And so some of that is seen in social media platforms, some is seen as media, but it's also some of the behind the scenes that's like, maybe I'm not in front of the camera, but I want to have some part in making sure that the information that goes forward in a accurate way. And so that kind of even segue into my next question. I hope I answered your question, Dr. Bai.
Yeah, and before you ask your question, I'm going to put an example of doing something different. The movie Get Out. So go and NABJ, yes. For those who don't know, that's an acronym for the National Association of Black Journalists. That's NABJ. Yes, so back to you, Jazz. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is speaking to the whole idea of we're talking about behind the camera. We're talking about these media outlets and us being represented or kicking in the doors, demanding a seat at the table, all those things. One of the things that, and I guess this is just more of a personal reflection, and you can feel otherwise, and I'm kind of just opening it up for discussion. I believe one of the struggles that we have had is I've recognized and I've studied, excuse me, and I've seen other cultures where people are able to play their roles and understand that. So, for instance, not everyone needing to feel like they have to have the limelight or be in front of the camera or be the star, but Issa Rae needed someone to help her write. She needed someone to help her film. She needed someone to help her produce. She needed someone to help, at some point you recognize that you're equally as powerful as a team player, as the person in front of the camera. Do you think that at any point some of our struggles come from recognizing that that's exactly how we have to kind of move some of these initiatives forward? Or do you feel like we're recognizing that and very in tune with it?
I think some of us are recognizing that, the ones who understand and know that that's what it takes to move things forward, understand that and they know. But there are some people that don't know. When you think about it, when you're presented with opportunities for media, all you know is, for example, what you read or what you see. And if you're not someone that's really in tune with that world, you don't understand that what's in front of the camera or, is a very small part of the entire picture. You don't know, like if you ask someone going to college or someone that's in college, oh, well, what do you want to do? In the end, they want to go into the entertainment industry or into media. Okay, perfect example. Every communication student that's practicing journalism, they're like, oh, well, I want to be an anchor.
Right.
Well, you don't start off as an anchor. You have to go through the rank. But what they know is anchor and reporter because that's what they see. They don't understand the concept of producer. They don't understand the concept of things like, well, not necessarily in news, but showrunner in the entertainment world. They don't understand the concept of the writer's room. They don't understand the concept of the camera people. They don't know that there's a whole machine. It's like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg are the people in front of the camera. Underneath is everybody else that makes that production run. And so I think another end to that is that people simply don't know what else there is.
Absolutely. So I think that was my point, in that I believe that part of us becoming powerful as this machine, as this, storytelling machine, is to understand that each part of it is as equally powerful. And even if we can begin exposing and discussing some of the other ways in which these productions come together, people can start seeing themselves in a space outside of being necessarily in front of the camera. Like I'm more of a writer, I believe, and so recognizing that that's a place. Or I love filming and I love telling a story through the lens. Or I want to go back in that writer's room. Or I'll run and I'll manage the whole project. I think that it's important for us to start being able to expound upon what are our possible, streamlines and ways to success. And I think when you can't see yourself in front of the camera, you don't see a role sometimes. And if we can begin kind of helping people understand that it takes more than just the person in front of the camera to be powerful, I think that would allow a lot more of us to kind of play our part in this particular element.
So there are some very concrete ways that we can do that. I am a firm believer in having somebody else pay for your experiences. So I've done to date probably about 5 fellowships. And one of the things that I've done a bunch. So two of the ones that were actually, they're all my favorite. But let me mention two. The National Association of Television Program Executives. I was a fellow for them, and I had basically it was like a faculty internship where they would place you at a station of your choice in the market of your choice, and you would basically be learning everything, because the thing is that often people, faculty, they may not be working professionals anymore, and so this refreshes your knowledge, which was great. And then I was also a fellow for the Television Academy, the people who do the Emmys. So they flew us out to LA, and we got firsthand information from people like showrunners, from creators.
Nice.
I mean, it was amazing. But how did I find it? I didn't sit and just wait for it to come to me. I use Google. All of these, the 5 that I did by Googling and finding them out. And then what did I do? I told other people. After I did it, I said, look, I just did this. You need to do it too. Now, if you don't apply for it, that's your damn problem. I can't help you.
I gave it
after
to you.
That. I gave it to you. But the point is, we have to start this pipeline for information and putting things out there. Now, sometimes it works, and sometimes people have excuses. So if you have excuses, I have no time for you. I've already told you what you need to do. But there are all these opportunities out there that we, like, let me talk about people of color, that we tend not to know about because we either have too much else to do, or we don't. The same Google I used is the same Google available to you. Please use it. So, and then you don't even have to Google it because I'm telling you. So sometimes we set up roadblocks for ourselves by not taking the opportunities that are put out there. That's why for some people, I've had to wash my hands of them, because I've told you, and then you're the same person crying about, oh, well, I don't have, is there any funding for such and such? I told you. You didn't want to listen.
I feel like you're about to segue into a whole nother show. I can feel the heat rising up. I can feel it coming up over me like, oh my gosh.
Hold on now. Behave yourself. We're cutting down, so you're going to have to wait for 2 weeks, but behave yourself.
But no, I think that's very accurate. And one of the things that I think is valuable to pull from that is that we need to start creating this chain link of knowledge where we're not receiving something and holding it to our chest and not passing it on. I found out a grant app for parents who are writers, and I sent it out to every mother or father I knew who was a writer, because, hey, it's here. If you win it, if I win, it doesn't matter. It's here. Now, if you don't apply for it, like you said, it's not my fault. But I think that that's one of the most powerful things that we can do within our community, within our power, is to continuously pass information amongst one another. And that in itself is completely game changing. So thank you for that insight.
Can I add one more thing to that? I'm sorry.
Yes,
no, go ahead, please.
The Television Academy, the people that do the Emmys, they have an amazing internship program in all areas of production for college students. I think it's college and like maybe first year out. So if you're in college, you go to look it up, the Television Academy, because I can't remember the website, but it's the Television Academy of Arts and Sciences. It's the Television Academy Foundation. They're the ones who do the fellowship for faculty and then this internship. If you're interested in writing, yes. If you're interested in the law aspect of television, yes. Any aspect, it's there. So we talk about not understanding what this industry is. That is the perfect internship to learn what is above the line and what is behind the camera and where do I fit in. So, but I'm telling you, even with my own students, I had the poster. They sent me the poster every year, had it up on my door. Not a damn one of them would apply because they all decided that working over the summer was more important. Now, I'm not saying don't work. But if what you're doing right now is what you want to do for the rest of your life, then do you, boo-boo. But I'm saying if you really want to work in this field, you need to make sacrifices, get yourself out to find a way. Find it out.
All right. Yes. On that note, we're going to end part 1 of this epic conversation. Or just to paraphrase what Tachi just said, don't get good, get done. There you go.
Yes.
So Tachi, thank you so much for your patience tonight. And I know you had a challenge earlier on with your broadcast, so at least we got you on tonight. This is part 1 of a 2-part epic conversation. We're going to be back on in 2 weeks, where We'll talk about a whole myriad of different stuff, but mainly about Apple and their new devices. It'll be on the 13th.
Yay.
So Tachi will give her take on all what's going on with Apple and other stuff. So Tachi, thanks again for dropping by. How can people touch base with you?
I am at Tachiada, Tachiada, on Twitter, and there's some variation of that on every other platform, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. So, but the best way, tweet at me.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, she does her great show on Wednesday night, so do tell us again.
Thank you. You always have to remind me.
Absolutely.
Mediascope, which is all things media tech and pop culture, Wednesdays at 5 on Busker, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Periscope and Facebook Live. So feel free to join. It's called Mediascope.
Oh, dude, it's a
media
must.
Party.
It's a party. It's a must view. That's all I gotta say. It's a must view. Not only do I watch it all the time, I mention it all the time when Tachi's on a conversation of mine. So she knows I always mention it because I believe in it so much. And also shout out to Curtis Brooks, her producer.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Jazz, how can people touch base with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. I am at Jazz Keys, JAZZKEYES, on all platforms: Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. My website is www.jazzkeys.com. I am pretty accessible. I try to be open, so you can find me on any one of those platforms.
All right. Well,
and then here on Wednesday nights.
Yes, Wednesday nights. Absolutely. Can't forget that. Well, I'm Dr. Vibe. I co-host and produce this madness called Stuff on Wednesday nights at 9:30 Eastern Time. And I also host and produce the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations wherever I am. I'm going to see if I can get this done in one shot. You can catch my YouTube replays where you are right now on my YouTube channel. Audio replays of my Epic Conversations, thedrvibeshow.com. You can also catch it at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music Store, Stitcher Radio, Selected Conversations audio-wise on the Good Men Project and WJMSradio.com. If you want to get me for a complimentary empowerment session of 30 minutes at drvibeshow, email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, and also you can go to the website. I'm also brand ambassador for the only online magazine dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. That's called Cuisine Noir Magazine. And in a few weeks, there may be a special announcement we're going to have involving Dr. Vibe, but we ain't going to say nothing yet. We're just going to pray about it. And if it happens...
It's already there. It already is.
Yeah, if it happens, it's... let's say it's a dream come true. Let's put it that way. Let's just put it that way. So I'll be telling some people about it and asking for their prayers, but we could have a positive change for beneficial of a lot of people in the next few weeks. On that note, but it's all about you guys, so thank you for watching. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. Thanks again to Cod Diamond for checking it out. And as always, I like to say, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And for those who are going back to school, best wishes, which is not only teachers, but also students. Good night.